Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And it's another busy week in the realm of K-State sports, but of course, we're here to cover pretty much all of it. But before we do get started, we do want to thank Grandma, as always.
Thank you, Grandma.
So we're actually just going to dive straight into it with the with the new commits for the men's basketball team. Correction, because we always cover new commits first. And this year, Tang took some really big swings at some five-star guys. That was Wunkus jumping off of my shoulder, by the way. The staff took some big swings at some guys. Fortunately, none of them worked out, but they did get two high school commits in quick succession, those being Ashton McGee and Xavier Wilson, both picking K-State, I believe, within 24 hours of one another. And, you know, it's nice to see Tang finally sort of get on the board when it comes to high school guys. I know David Castillo was technically his first high school commit, or
no, it would have been Day-Day Ames.
Yeah, it would have been Day-Day. My bad. I completely forgot about that trio of guys that came in that first year. That kind of, wow.
Well, I think that goes to show their overall impact at K-State. So
yeah. But anyway, there was only one high school signee last year, and that was David Castillo. And now we get 2 for this year. So Connor, what do you have to say about Ashton? We'll start with Ashton McGee. What do you have on him?
I think he's kind of naturally been the one that I think fans have been a bit more excited about, mainly because he just has the more exciting tape, which, of course, it's absolutely exciting highlight tape because, I mean, it's pretty much just all incredible dunks from him. I mean, he really his high school game, I would say he's like a more explosive but less built like a truck Buddy Rich. Because Buddy Rich did have that element to his game where like he was able to jump out of the gym, but also look like a linebacker. Whereas McGee, he's more built like a Xavier Sneed, but I would say is probably more athletic than him, but probably has a lower starting point though in terms of his shot. Because his shot, I'm just going to say his shot's not very good. He makes like a 33.3% of his 3-point attempts, which is good. But the shot is just, the form's awful on it. Like, it's really bad. But he, if nothing else, is a high flyer and a great dunker. And I think this is probably the staff looking and kind of uncovering a gem that had mostly mid-major offers with some regional high major offers. He had an Ole Miss offer. I think Mississippi State was looking around. He's from Mississippi. But otherwise, I mean, I'm not upset with this. I don't think he's someone that's going to come and contribute immediately unless he gets really, really good at getting to the basket and plays great defense. Which if his defensive game is great, then he's already, I would say, at Buddy Rich level at minimum, because at least he would be willing to play defense. Still, it's tough to say on Ashton McGee, but if this is someone that they're looking at as kind of a multi-year project, while they build around other guys in the short term, but bring him in as a long-term sort of deal, I'm not really upset by that.
No, and I think that's sort of going to be the winning strategy with college basketball now is you will get your impact transfers that you need to contribute immediately. And of course, you'll still have your 5-star and 4-star guys at some of the high major programs, but you still need some of those guys to be able to sit down and sort of marinate for a little bit. And granted, that's my philosophy. I could be entirely wrong in the philosophy, but yeah, I like the pickup mostly because we've seemed to have a very high hit rate on freakishly athletic players that are really technically raw coming to K-State. Granted, most of them have been JUCO guys that just sort of seem to work out. But Ashton McGee wasn't the only one to commit. There's also a guard, Xavier Wilson, who is from Columbia. Missouri, for clarification. So, what do you have about him? He's a guard, obviously, so different position.
Yeah, he's another really athletic player. His tape is pretty interesting. I'm a point guard by trade, but despite being 6'1", he's actually pretty explosive as well. If you go through the past few years, K-State hasn't really had a lot of point guards that dunk. But Xavier Wilson does. I mean, Doug McDaniel can dunk. He hasn't done it in game, but he doesn't warm-ups. Sometimes Tyler Perry, I don't know if he could touch the rim. And Keys, I think, actually could touch the rim, but was simply too short to dunk. And that's no fault of his own. But I'm definitely an athletic player that I think we're bringing in behind David Castillo, because Castillo has really struggled this year. I think I think a lot of times he's looked kind of lost on offense, and I think we're bringing in Xavier Wilson as a guy to maybe be able to mold a little bit more with maybe a better athletic profile than Castillo. But this was also a head-to-head recruiting win against West Virginia. They wanted him pretty badly. I also find it really interesting that he's out of Columbia and Mizzou did not offer. I'm not really sure why, but more power to them, I guess. They're having a pretty good season, so like they can do what they want, I suppose. But no, this is another pickup I'm pretty happy with. Again, I don't think this is somebody that's going to step in and be like a day one starter, like early off the bench. I think he's more likely to redshirt than play next year, honestly, unless he's just a total revelation in the fall. But again, the staff has hyped up a lot of people in the past, and it's been kind of anyone's guess on if that actually plays out or not. Like they really hyped up David Castillo this offseason, and he, I think, has had a bit of a disappointing freshman year. They really hyped up Day-Day Ames, and he had half a disappointing season and was kind of getting better by the end.
And then transferred out.
Yeah, and then transferred out, which I'll leave that be. But we've heard plenty of stuff out of the staff in the past, but I'll be interested to see what they do with Xavier Wilson. But both of these guys, McGee and Wilson, are definitely not the prospect that they were bringing to the football games, parading in front of the student section. Your Patrick Gongbas, your AJ DeBonsas, your Darren Petersons, all those guys. Because I don't mind taking swings at the big fish, but I do think that we should also be a little bit realistic about our chances with some of these guys, because I think we've shown that unless you just have like screw you money like BYU does with AJ DeBonsa, like you can't genuinely just buy somebody at the 5-star level. Like you got to bring something else to the table as well. Which also, side note, Patrick Gomba at Duke only played in 21 games, averaging 3 points per game, 2.9 rebounds. I remember we wanted him as a stretch 5 for the 5-out. That's why we did the whole 5-out thing. He's attempted 1 3-pointer this year, and he missed it.
Nice.
just a side tangent, that because I have not thought about Pat Gomba in a while. And
I haven't either.
All this recruiting news has brought the memories flowing back of welcome Big Pat signs all around Manhattan.
Yeah, that was great. Anyway, so welcome to the family. It's good to get some basketball commits on the board. But now we get to talk about the Batcats, who, I mean, wow. Coming off of an amazing week down in Texas, they had another really good one down in Texas where you could make an argument they should have gone 3-0. But, I guess if your one loss is to the number one team in the country in extra innings, I guess you can call that a good weekend.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I mean, the loss to LSU was super frustrating because I think K-State, if they just played a bit more of a clean game, I think K-State wins that. And I honestly don't think it's a question. because K-State was really going punch for punch with LSU in that first game, but they just weren't quite able to hang on, which made it, I think, hurt all the more, as opposed to if we just kind of like been in it but never really had a shot. It's the other side of the coin. But regardless, still 3 games in Frisco, coming on 2-1 with a pair of convincing victories and a absolute slugfest against the top team in the country. That's nothing to snuff about.
No, and we'll go game by game because it's baseball season, boys. But the first one was up against LSU. K-State ends up losing 8-5 in extra innings, forcing extra innings in what was really a back and forth game up until that last inning where LSU ends up getting 3 in the top of the 10th and K-State can't capitalize. And the big stat here to me, at least with K-State, is 3 errors on the day. And defense has always been a big bugaboo with Pete Hughes teams, unless your name is Kalen Culpepper, which it still is kind of amazing, the gap between Kalen Culpepper and literally every other Pete Hughes player when it comes to just defensive prowess, especially when Kalen Culpepper was at third base. But yeah, the 3 errors, you can't afford, honestly, you probably can't afford one mistake like that up against the number 1 team in the country when you're coming in as the underdog. But unfortunately, K-State has 3. And despite all of that, I'm still really happy with how the team performed, because if you look at the people who played in this game, there is no doubt that K-State tried to empty the clip to win this game. This is the first time I have had to scroll to just see the entire lineup card for K-State. So,
yeah, K-State, I mean, if nothing else, you can say they absolutely did go all out and take some risk to win. Obviously, the big one, on which, granted, you can't really say, I guess, K-State took the risk. It was really D. Kennedy taking the risk, running on the throw in the bottom of the 9th, which he apparently did run through a stop sign on that. He was being told to hold up at third on a double. And he ran through and tried to go home. I don't know how badly he was out. It sounded like it was a play at the plate and was clearly out, but wasn't just embarrassingly out. But
he didn't get hosed.
Yeah. But based off everything that I have seen and heard, is that it required pretty much a perfect relay from LSU, which they did execute, which, I mean, you should probably expect from the number 1 team in the country that they're going to do that. But man, it was really a heartbreaker for the Batcats against a really quality opponent.
Yeah, and I'll go over the notable offensive stats because really there are 4 big performances, and then everyone else either went 0 for or 1 for, and the 3 big ones are all in sequence. D. Kennedy going 2 for D. Kennedy going 2 for 4, 1 run, 2 RBI. The unfortunate thing is he was the one who ran through the stop sign, so that's kind of the only blemish on his day. Seth Dardar goes 2 for 5, 1 run, 1 RBI. Nick English 2 for 4 with an RBI, and then Bear Madliak, who's gone 2 for 4 and drew a walk. And Bear Madliak has been a really, really good offensive catcher, because we're kind of just used to Rafael Pelletier, who perhaps the best defensive catcher in the Big 12. And granted, if he ever touched the baseball, it was going to outer space. The problem was him touching the baseball.
Yeah, I do not want to know what his whiff rate was.
Oh. Yeah, I'm happy with the offensive performance. I mean, we put up 5. We put up 5 runs against the number 1 team in the country, who's known. Granted, they're known for just being a good baseball team, but they've also produced some of the best pitching talent in college baseball of the past few years. Paul Skeens is the number one example. But I can't be mad at the offensive performance.
Yeah, I mean, K-State put up 10 hits in this game. That's pretty good. I mean, they did strike out a lot. They struck out 15 times, but they drew 7 walks, throw in 10 hits with that. I mean, that K rate's really high, but we still made a lot of contact, and we had some smart at-bats when we needed to. I think it was that 7th inning. They gave us a couple of free runs and just could not get in the zone there for a while, and we were content to sit back and have some plate discipline. But otherwise, we were swinging away, which, I mean, that's kind of Pete Hughes at his core. If he's going down, he's going down swinging. There's you can't take that from the man, if nothing else. But yeah, still a frustrating loss, despite K-State really offensively being right there with LSU. I mean, it was pretty close. The 3 errors from K-State, I mean, that's the difference.
Yeah. Despite that, I don't even think you can point to one of the pitchers and say they had a bad performance either.
Yeah, I mean, there weren't really any stellar performances, but like you said, you can't really look at a pitcher and say you were singularly the reason that we lost this game. I mean, they're going to attribute a loss because that's just how scoring works, but that doesn't necessarily mean that pitcher was the end all be all reason. Jacob Frost gets the start in this one, went 4 2/3, gave up 3 hits, 2 earned runs, walked 3, then had 2 strikeouts, did hit a batter, and we intentionally walked 1 while Frost was up on the mound. So a solid start, couldn't quite get to 5 innings, but a decent start nonetheless. Tazwell Butler, 2 1/3 for him, 3 hits, 3 earned runs, a walk and a strikeout, and then another intentional walk. Blake Dean, he gets credit with the loss in this one, unfortunately, but he went 2 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 1 earned, and then a walk and 2 strikeouts. JJ Slack went just 1/3 of an inning, 1 hit, 1 earned run, a walk and a strikeout. And James Guyette came in to be the last pitcher of the game for the Cats, gave up a hit and had 1 strikeout in 2/3 of an inning and just 7 pitches for Guyette. So it was definitely a staff day for the Batcats, but K-State was putting out some of their best competitors, some of their best arms against LSU. They were there to win. They weren't there to keep it close. But Frost has definitely been a better pitcher this year than he was last year. Blake Dean has continued to improve. And James Guyette, despite having a bit of an inflated ERA right now, I think he's due for a pretty good year. And I really like what they've done with his throwing motion.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, still really disappointing game to lose. But I think if you play this game the exact same conditions 100 times, if K-State just cleans up the errors, they probably win 50 of them. This was very much a 50-50 game that came down to K-State just having some untimely errors.
Yeah, and I'll take a coin flip game up against the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, on a neutral field, that I think that speaks pretty well to the quality of your baseball team.
Yeah, and also what I will say is I say this about one pitcher every year. I think James Guyette is going to be the pitcher this year where I'm going to say this on. I really want to see his FIP. It's if such advanced analytics exist in the college baseball realm. If you don't know what FIP is, it's fielding independent pitching. So it's basically literally just how good are you pitching regardless of anything behind you. I think Guyette's going to take that title. Maybe Dante Lewis ends up running second alongside him, but ERA plus and FIP are the 2 primary pitching metrics nowadays, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I imagine they track it in-house. I think that they keep a pretty detailed analytics stable in the clubhouse for K-State. I wish that we could get some of that information, but we just kind of get what they put out. I'm sure there's a way that we could do all that ourselves, but I
I ain't doing that.
that would require a full-time job, and we do not have full-time job time to sit down and do that.
No, we have full-time jobs in general. So
Yes.
the next game was up against a Sam Houston squad who's really, really struggled out the gates, which is weird because Sam Houston's been one of those traditional like mid-major powers when it comes to college baseball. But I mean, K-State kind of waxed them 14-3, and it was never particularly close. K-State was wire to wire in front except for the first inning. So this is one of those where you're like, yeah, you know what? I'm just happy that we went in, we got our victory, we left against a team that who knows if and when they'll wake up, but they have traditionally been a really, really solid baseball team.
Yeah. You said it well. I mean, this was a dominant win for K-State. This is a Sam Houston team that 2 years ago K-State lost to in another early season tournament down in Texas, and that was another tournament where K-State also played LSU, and we lost to Paul Skeens. So that was a couple years ago, I think, at this point. And then Iowa was the Big Ten team there. So nearly the same field, except just swap Iowa for Nebraska, which I'm sure they'd love being compared. But it's a much different result this time around for the Batcats against Sam Houston.
Yeah. But Connor, you have the offensive numbers, and yeah, have fun, man.
Yeah, a lot of defensive moves and pinch hitters and pinch runners in this one. Pete Hughes definitely emptied the bench late in this game, which I think was the right call, particularly when you have quite a few playable players. But Kyan Lotus, he led off in this game. He went 3 for 5, 2 RBIs, scored 3 runs himself, drew a walk, struck out just once. And he sent a home run out of the park as well. So a really nice day for him. Followed up in the number 2 spot, Shintaro Inoue, who had one of his better games as a Wildcat. He split time between second and short, 5 at-bats, 3 hits for him, scored 1 run, and then had an RBI and a walk, just struck out once. So another good day for him. D. Kennedy, 1 for 4, drew 2 walks, scored a run. So a good day for D. Kennedy. He also had some really nice plays at the hot corner at third. D. Kennedy, he's really been really solid at third base this year for K-State. I've been really pleased with his defense. Seth Dardar, he was batting in the cleanup spot, playing first. He did go 0 for 3. But at one point did get hit by a pitch, and then that brought in a pinch runner and Rowan Putz, the redshirt freshman, I believe he's a Kansas kid as well. And he scored a run. David Bishop came as a defensive sub, went 1 for 2, scored a run. Nick English started out in right field, 0 for 2, but did score a run. He got walked 2 times. So a solid day for Nick. Micah Dean pinch ran and subbed in for right field and had 1 at-bat, struck out, but did score a run. Bear Madley, he went 0 for 3, but drew a walk and scored a run. Caden Phillips pinch hit and caught for him, struck out twice. AJ Avasco went 1 for 4 with 2 RBI, drew a walk. So a solid day for the true freshman, the DH. Maximus Martin, he went 2 for 4, 3 RBIs, scored a couple of runs as well. So a solid day for Maximus Martin. Man, there's a lot of players on this list.
Now, you're almost at the end, and you are going to the person that hit a nuclear bomb.
Ty Smolinski, the true freshman out of Nebraska. He pinch hit and played some second base, and he had a sac fly at one point. Then, of course, we come to perhaps the man of the hour in this game, Keegan O'Connor, who absolutely demolished a baseball, ripped the seams off it. He went 2 for 4, scored a run, had 2 RBIs, hit a 480-foot mammoth that went. Earlier I said out of the park. It was more of a euphemism. This one literally left the confines of the property, like it escaped the park and hit an apartment on the other side of the road.
Yeah, bro hit the Shawshank Redemption home run. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was gone, never to be seen again. The camera just kind of zoomed in the general direction that it may be, but it left orbit. And so that was just an absurd home run from him. And he played left field. He's someone that we've seen kind of off and on. Pete Hughes was quoted recently as saying, we need to get Keegan O'Connor more at-bats, and I'm seeing why Pete said that, because that was pretty incredible. And something that we've not mentioned, every game this weekend, K-State had at one point back-to-back home runs. Game 1, it was D. Kendi and Seth Dardar. This game, I believe it was Kyan Lotus and Shintaro Inoue. Keegan, his whole 480-foot deal, that was just his own thing. But still, really top to bottom, just about everybody did something for K-State in this game.
And despite all of those amazing performances, you could argue that the pitching was the highlight of the day, led by Michael Cavedo, who went 5 innings, only 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 10 strikeouts with only 1 wild pitch and 89 pitches. So the only complaint is realistically, you don't want to give up a single earned run, but giving up 2 is fine. And you want to see maybe 1 fewer walk, but getting double-digit strikeouts on sub-90 pitches is nuts. That is literally just mowing them down territory. Then Dante Lewis had himself a nice 2 innings, 1 hit, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, 40 pitches. Then Ty Rule came in. I think in some old school scoring metrics, he would have been considered the person who got the save. Obviously not how this person scored it, which I'm not arguing. Ty Rule went 2 innings, got 1 strikeout, didn't give up any hits or any runs, and got through 2 innings and 17 pitches, which I think that's sort of the efficiency that we wanted from Ty Rule this entire year as the elder statesman of the group. But yeah, Michael Cavedo having himself a double-digit strikeout game through 5. He faced 21 batters. He struck out nearly 50% of them.
Yeah, fantastic stuff from Michael Cavedo on this one.
Yeah, but I think that's pretty much it for the Sam Houston game. And then the last one is another team that entered the preseason ranked, but sort of struggled out the gates, and that's Nebraska. K-State ends up beating them 9-6. Nebraska honestly tried mounting a comeback towards the back end of the game. The game was not as close as 9-6. It just wasn't. But I'll go over the offensive numbers before we go into more general ideas. A new leadoff guy this game was Max Martin. 3 for 4, 2 runs, 2 RBI, and a walk. So really, really good choice moving him up to the leadoff spot this game. Then you have, going down the list, you have Seth Dardar later on in the lineup batting 4th. He ends up going 3 for 5 with 2 RBI and a run of his own. You end up getting Nick English, who technically goes 0 for 3, but gets 2 walks and ends up scoring 3 times. AJ Vasco, 1 for 3 with 2 RBI and a walk. Keegan O'Connor, 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run. And Kyan Lotus goes 1 for 3 with an RBI and a walk. The home runs belong to Max Martin, AJ Vasco, and Keegan O'Connor. Granted, Keegan O'Connor's, this one didn't go 500 feet, so it doesn't really count. But good victory, good offensive showcase, but you get the pitchers now.
Yeah, this is another banner day from a new pitcher for K-State this season, and that is Lincoln Sheffield. Oh, and by the way, I also no, never mind. I was worried that we messed up the Keegan O'Connor home run. No, we did. It was this game.
Actually. Oh, my bad.
No, it's okay. I was the one that said it initially, but I was checking because I know I screenshotted the stat track of 480, and the timestamp is Sunday. So yes, my bad on that.
You're
But
good.
Lincoln Sheffield, he went 6 1/3, and just 79 pitches as well in 6 1/3, which is nuts. 6 hits, 2 earned runs, no walks, 7 strikeouts, 1 wild pitch. That is just absolutely brutal efficiency in a good way. Lincoln Sheffield was just absolutely dealing. This is now 2 weekends in a row that he's been the day 3 starter and has kind of looked like the number 1 guy, honestly. K-State is just throwing left-handed pitchers out there to start games. I think all 3 of our starters right now are lefties. So that's a fantastic.
Noted reversal.
Yeah. So it has been an incredible start to the year for Sheffield. He's truly been great. And getting through 26 at bats and 79 pitches, really, really, really great stuff from Lincoln. But only 2 other pitchers were seen in this game. James Guyette went 1 2/3, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, and 2 strikeouts. And Blake Dean, he finished the game. I gave up a hit, 2 earned runs, a couple of strikeouts, a hit batter. So a little bit more noise than you'd like to give up late in a game like this. But Casey had a very comfortable lead. Led this game 9-2 at one point. So the only difference really was just how it looked on the scoreboard. But this another thing I want to mention was actually the starting pitcher for Nebraska, and that's Jackson Brockett. He is the pitcher that no-hit K-State last year in the Nebraska game up in Lincoln. And he lasted 2 innings in this one against K-State. So I think we had the scout out on Jackson Brockett in this
We were
one.
mad. We
Yes.
were upset.
And we were not letting that happen again. And we put together a fantastic performance against the preseason Big Ten favorites in Nebraska. They're pretty widely considered to be the team to beat in the Big Ten, and we really just took care of them in this game.
Yeah, which, exciting stuff. Really, we went from a very depressing non-conference slate to somehow ending up 6-5 against the harder part of the schedule. But they would have had a game yesterday, the day that we're recording, 2 days ago. This releases against Crichton, and it ends up getting canceled because of inclement weather. So the first home series will be up against William and Mary starting the day that this releases. So go out and support the Batcats, because even if they weren't winning, which, they are, they're still a damn fun team to watch.
Yeah, this is a good baseball team. I mean, at this point, I remember, about a month ago, a month and a half ago, when we had Brian on, we were kind of all in agreement. It's we'll see how this non-conference slate goes, basically. But kind of at least you and I understood it to be we may have a pretty rough start to the year, but we have played a very, very difficult schedule to this point, and we're above 500, which is beyond what I would have even realistically hoped for. I would have hoped to have 3 wins, honestly, against the quality of opponents that we've been facing. So I'm very, very happy with how the season's been going so far for K-State baseball, and it seems like we have a lot of new faces emerging right now, and guys are stepping up to fill in where we lost a lot of our stars. But Maximus Martin, he's been on fire recently. He was the Big 12 Player of the Week last week, or Newcomer of the Week, or something last week. Mm-hmm. And he's been fantastic. So a big shout out to him. Lincoln Sheffield was, I think, co-Newcomer of the Week a few weeks ago. So this has been a really strong start to the season for K-State baseball, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where they take it from here.
Yeah. And if for those who are curious, yes, we are going to do RPI watch, but not this early, because currently K-State sits at 41, which sounds decent, and then you realize LSU is like 109 and KU is, I think, 19. So, and the number one team in the country per RPI is the Southern Illinois Salukis.
Yeah, like K-State is 31 right now, which
Okay.
is really great, but like it's so early, it just doesn't matter. Like I'm completely unmoved by K-State being that high in RPI at this point in time when 7-6 Xavier is the number 2 RPI team in the country. Like it, like we're putting 7-6 Xavier above undefeated 13-0 North Carolina. Like that, I think that speaks to the quality of RPI at this point in the year. Like Tennessee's like 13-0, probably the best team in the country. They're at 7. Like you've got Southern Illinois Xavier and UTRGV ahead of Tennessee, which I regret to inform you is incorrect. Normally, I'm willing to give some deference and at least like understand some of these things. That's just unfortunately wrong. Try again.
No.
So, like we'll mention RPI right now. We'll say where we stand, but it doesn't mean anything.
No, especially when the top teams are just teams that survived their bye games.
Right.
But that's it for the Batcats. Now we can talk a little bit about the men's team. And I will be abundantly honest and say that this team is just kind of there for me right now. But they did win 2 straight, so credit where credit's due. They did beat Colorado and they did beat Cincinnati. They have 1 game left on the year. It's up against Iowa State in Bramlage. So it'll be an interesting time. But I mean, the only way that K-State makes a tournament is winning the Big 12 tournament, and I don't see it happening.
Yeah. Our only hope is Houston like resting its starters and like just going out in the quarterfinals because they probably have a 1 seed locked up.
Yeah.
That is probably genuinely our only hope of being able to win the Big 12 tournament, because if we face Houston, even with our newfound motivation, I still think we probably lose by 15 to 20.
Mm-hmm.
Like even like with a highly motivated team. Because I think Houston could come out and play with like 2/3 of their normal energy and still out tough us, basically. So that's where I sit. And we beat Colorado, and I expected us to beat Colorado. Colorado's been a tough out for pretty much everyone they faced, but they just can't win. Like they're just not good enough, even though they try. But the Cincinnati win, I was actually pretty impressed with. That was a tough win. That's a game that actually kind of really destroyed us at the end of last year. When we were still just holding out hope. Like we really needed that Cincinnati game. The circumstances are a bit different this year, but I think that makes it more impressive that we actually really went out and kind of gritted out a tough win, because we have no reason to care. Coleman Hawkins had 0 reason to play, and he played, and he was like visibly frustrated and passionate when we were down. Like, and you could Coleman's truly just doing it for the love of the game, and I have really grown to enjoy Coleman Hawkins, and he's been probably my second favorite player on this team, other than David Gasson. But I guess genuinely a solid win against Cincinnati. Granted, we did do it with a lot of help from Cincinnati playing some of the worst basketball I've ever seen, like the last 5 minutes of this game. I was a little bit embarrassed for them with how they were playing. But David Gasson was great in this game. Great to have Coleman back. And everybody else contributed where they needed to. But yeah, I mean, beat Iowa State on senior day and just like have some fun with it. I mean, we were in the same situation last year where we were definitely out of the field. We had Iowa State on senior day with no reason to play. And then we just showed up and beat Iowa State out of absolutely nowhere. So I'd love to do the same thing this year, especially on Big Boy CBS. So that could be a lot of fun. I'm not really expecting a win. I think they're going to be out for revenge, but I will be watching. I'll be seated, if for no other reason than to enjoy the beautiful CBS presentation that they always do as a primer for March Madness.
Yeah. So here's a unrelated question before we just sort of go to the women's side of the game. Has Coleman Hawkins earned a seat on the K-State all-time they really deserved better mountain next to Tyler Perry.
Yeah, I would say so. Because I think at this point we can really look at Coleman and like I think we can pretty easily say that he was not the problem really for most of the season. He had a rough start to the year, but it wasn't because he didn't care, which I think was kind of what we were accusing him of early in the year. And I say we, I mean the fan base generally. I think we can look at Coleman and pretty clearly tell that care is not a problem for him. Like he loves winning and loves basketball, like, and that's why he's doing it. Sure, he's probably making a ton of money, but at this point in the year with an injured knee, he could very well just shut it down. If it was only about money, he could have just shut it down and started prepping for the pros. Like at this point, he has nothing to play for, like other than pride and love of winning. Like, so I think that makes it obvious, like what Coleman's here for. Like, obviously, I think the early season issues come down to the disconnect between Jerome Tang and Doug McDaniel, which I know some people are going to fall on either side of the issue. I think it's pretty obvious that it went both ways. And Doug was just not the player we needed him to be earlier in the season. I think we waited a little bit too long to really let him loose. But he still really wasn't playing great early in the season regardless. So like that's the flip side of it. But we can do a whole dissection of the season at a later point. But to get back to your question, yeah, Coleman definitely deserved better than what he got this year from the rest of the K-State team. But we'll always have that 6-game stretch where we were the best team in the country. But none of it really matters if you play non-conference the way that you do and lose both games on the road out in Utah, which granted that BYU loss really honestly not bad at all at this point. Like BYU has taken that game, we passed the mantle of hottest team in the country to BYU. Like that's what happened in that game, because that was our first loss in 6 tries. And since then, BYU's just been an absolute tear. They just beat Iowa State in double overtime in Ames. Yeah. So BYU at some point in the next couple weeks is going to pass that torch to someone in the NCAA tournament, and then they're going to go win the national championship. So be on the lookout for that. Whoever plays BYU in the Sweet 16, probably going to win the Natty. Just book it now.
Yeah, and that's another fun. Maybe that's a Knights in the Ville episode we can do. Is we can make an all-time this player deserved better team. It doesn't have to be specifically basketball, but I think Tyler Perry is probably going to be number 1 on my list.
He's definitely up there. Jordy Nelson is a huge one, though. He was on some bad K-State football team. Jordy Nelson, one of the best receivers in K-State football history, went to, I think, 1 bowl game. And that was the Texas Bowl in Ron Prince's first year that we lost by 30. So I'm going to put Jordy Nelson up there preemptively. But also we really need to sit down and kind of figure out maybe some guys from the 90s basketball teams that were really good, but everyone else just sucked. I don't know, who did Gene Asbury ruin? Probably at least a few guys.
Yeah, it'll be a fun Knights in the Ville episode for off-season content. But let me talk about the women's team, who had a wet fart up against Iowa State in Ames to end the regular season and just beat UCF today. And then they do get a rematch the day this comes out at 11 a.m. on ESPNU up against West Virginia. They need to beat West Virginia if they want to host. So if you're listening to this after the game has happened and K-State has lost, just know that Connor and I are seething to ourselves and lamenting the fact that I think we're pretty comfortably going to host on the 4 line if we do beat West Virginia. If we lose, I would say it's a 75-25 of us not hosting.
The thing is, though, is that even after our Iowa State loss, ESPN's bracketology, they still had us hosting, which is the weird part. I fully expected us to be off the 4 line. after that game. But we've been getting a lot of help from other teams also being trash at this point in the year. So, like a big one that they said today on the broadcast was Tennessee was on the 4 line. They lost in the first round of the SEC tournament to Vanderbilt. So they are getting knocked off of the 4 line. So that is another team that we do not have to worry about. So that was great news for us. Now we still don't have it locked down. I'm still nervous. If we win against West Virginia, then yeah, we probably have it. But let's just win and not have to worry about it. That's my philosophy on that.
That's my philosophy because
plus,
I know
payback against West Virginia because I hate them.
Yeah, you're now experiencing the hatred I had for West Virginia football when I first got to college. But the other one that I'm worried about is Maryland, because I think Maryland's sitting on a 5 line right now, and I think their tournament's coming up. So I am worried about Maryland. But like you said, just beat West Virginia. Beat the Fighting J.J. Quinterleys, because there ain't a damn soul else on that team.
Yeah, they have 2 very short guards that are really fast, which is just like the perfect offensive counter to us because we have a bunch of not necessarily slow, but nowhere near as quick, tall and long guards. And Quinterly and the other one who I cannot remember the name of, I think her name is Jordan. They are both really, really, really good. And then they have a bunch of they basically have an army of Kennedy Taylors for post players.
Great.
They just platoon out there, not necessarily in play style, but roughly. I'd say they're all like worse Kennedy Taylors, just somewhere between Kennedy and Amani Lester. They'd have 5 of them, and they just float them out there to make layups.
Yeah. Also, I think I'm pretty much done with K-State right now, just because I don't think there's anything left to say. I do want to make this stand. Haley Van Lith should not have been Big 12 Player of the Year.
No, that was shocking. I mean, she had a great season, but if it wasn't going to be Serena, which I didn't think they were going to pick her anyways, it should have been Quinterly. It absolutely should have been Quinterly
or Crooks. As much as I don't like her, and I think she gets away. Okay, I like her as a basketball player, and it pisses me off that A, she's really good, and B, she somehow still gets babied. You can't be that damn big and get babied.
Yeah, we have had this conversation about Audie Crooks where she does not need help from the refs, and I think it's disrespectful to give her the superstar treatment because she genuinely doesn't need it. She is good enough to dominate without it. Ayoka Lee's never really gotten the ref show that much, but man, Audie Crooks really does get a lot of calls to go her way. Not necessarily on shots. It's really more in rebounding situations. She really gets away with a lot of shoving that other players don't. And that's what bothers me is she doesn't need the extra help. She's an incredible basketball player. Let her skill speak for itself. But hold her accountable where you need to. But regardless, both her and JJ Quinterly would have been objectively better picks for Big 12 Player of the Year. Haley Van Lith, I think, was exclusively a popularity contest, and she still had a great season. That's not to take away from her to say she was bad, because she certainly wasn't. She had a really good year, and probably the best year of her career. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a popularity contest.
No.
That's exactly what it was. And Serena Sundell, I think, was a better point guard than her anyways this year.
Yeah. If I got a ballot, I don't. My ballot probably would have been Quinterly, Crooks, and then Serena in that order.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I think I would have put Serena first because I'm blinded by nepotism, but regardless, I would not have been upset at all if Quinterly won or if Crooks won. Van Lith doesn't upset. I'm not mad that she won, but I really am disappointed by it though, because I thought that there were 3 objectively better choices, and none of them got picked.
No. Anyway, you have any final notes before we sign off?
Yes, I do. I'm glad you asked. The K-State women's golf team. We're golf school once again. K-State women's golf, they went out and won the Mountain View Collegiate out in Tucson, Arizona, which apparently we hosted. I don't know why we're listed as the host on the stat tracker, but apparently we did, even though it was in Tucson and Arizona was there. But we won that tournament as a team and individually. Carla Burnett, she went minus 11 in this one, which is just nuts, and won, I think, pretty. Yeah, she won by 9 strokes in this one. Like, I'm not a golfer. I don't golf, but like I can count, and I know that that's pretty good. And so I'm happy to see that. In case they ranked 30th, and after this, I bet they soar up until like the 20s. Maybe this is where we need to invest our money to go after a national championship, because we got a new women's golf coach a few years ago, and since then things have been really good. Actually, like I think we actually made a slam dunk hire, and it's in women's golf, which
great.
Go figure. If that's what we need to win a natty, just one. Like at that point, then we can just do whatever. Like I'm fine if we just need one, just to like get the monkey off our backs, and then they'll just start rolling in. So,
yep. Anything else?
No.
All right. Well, if that's the case, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggieVilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdward00.
I am at Connor Balsor, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store, link found in our podcast and Twitter bio. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Or come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.